Hello, hello. Hope that you're doing absolutely fantastic today. First things first, if you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you've never seen my face, never seen one of my videos, my name is McKenna. I own a digital media company called Studio SB Creatives, and today we have a very special video, as you can tell by the title. This is my vlog from Europe. And I am so excited for you to finally see just some of the things that I did while I was there. You know, this isn't anything crazy. It's not like a cinematic movie or documentary by any means. It is just a compilation of footage that I got while I was in Europe, and I'm just very excited to be sharing it with you. Now, I need to preface this because in the title, I am calling it a vlog. But if you watched my last video, you'll realize that vlogging is actually something I didn't really do that much of by definition. Mostly because I was just busy, you know. I was constantly on the move, and I just didn't know how. You know, I don't know how to do everything, and I was learning and trying to learn on the go, and it started out okay, but there's a ton of factors as to why I just didn't get super into it, and I'm not going to get into those right now because this video is not about that. But I wanted to say that because this is the voiceover version. This is the version where I will be talking you through the footage and, you know, discussing things that I should have covered while I was there, but I just didn't, either because I didn't think about it or just because it just didn't happen that way. But this whole thing was it was a learning experience for me. So, you know, hopefully the next vlog, the next cinematic, docu-style, whatever I put together, will be better than this one. And, you know, I'm a little heartbroken that I did not do this one right the first time, being as I, you know, won't get a second chance to do it the first time. But you live and you learn. So we're making do with what we have, and it does not change the fact that I am very excited for you guys to see that. So I'm not going to waste any more of your time. Welcome to my 2025 Europe vlog. Good morning, good morning. It is April 20th, and today is the day that we leave for Europe. I was going to start recording the minute that I woke up, but it was 6:50. I got a couple hours of sleep, and I feel like I just needed to wake up first. I went to the gym, but now I'm home. I'm going to finish my last minute packing, and then we're out of here around like 2 o'clock. Came back, my roommates were up, they're ready to go. So let's go talk to them and see how they feel about the trip. All right, do a little bit of vlogging, Chris. Let me hear your thoughts.
No, I'm not doing this right now.
Yes, how you feeling, dog?
Is it on?
It's on.
Oh.
We're going to here.
Oh, we're doing this, baby. Some Paris. Some Paris.
So, yeah, you know, they were excited. Me, Chris, and Angel, we all got in the car. One of our friends dropped us off, got to the airport, got some food in Grand Rapids. And then after that, you know, we had to get those pre-flight beers. And then we were on our merry way from Grand Rapids to Detroit, and then Detroit to Paris. Well, boys, we officially made it to Paris.
How the fuck do we get out, though?
That is a good question.
We just gotta keep going.
Yeah. Do we not have to go through customs?
I think we do, right?
It's all the way down
That's,
here.
yeah. That's gonna be where
Oh, is that?
is.
Okay. Damn. This is crazy.
Good little silent walk.
Yeah, we don't have to deal with all those other people. Angel almost forgot his passport on the plane because him and Chris switched seats and we didn't know it, but luckily I checked and got the dude to go back and search the right seat. Now Angel has his passport and we can move on with our day at 8:50 in the morning with maybe an hour total of sleep on a 9-hour flight. This is going to be a show of a day, but I'm here for it. What do you guys say, Chris? Anything?
Fucking legs hurt.
Yep, that's about right. Angel, anything you want to say to the vlog?
Not really.
Okay.
He's gonna be silent Bob this whole trip.
Well, there you have it. So, yeah, after we got the whole passport situation figured out, uh, it was basically just trying to navigate the airport, figure out the train system, and get to our Airbnb. Um, we had a little bit of issues trying to get out of the airport, but Chris did stop and pick up some euros. And then after walking around for a bit, we did eventually find the train and we did make it to our Airbnb. But we did get there early, so I didn't record too much of that. Basically, we just stopped in, dropped our stuff off, and then we were back on our merry way. And because we were staying up in like this rooftop uh, of this building, we had to walk up and down this super dark, super steep, super long flight of stairs. But, we navigated, we figured it out. And then we were on the streets to just roam for a few hours until our Airbnb was fully ready. And we were on our way to our very first stop, which just happened to be the Arc de Triomphe, which was really not that far away. It was about a 10-15 minute walk from our Airbnb. And this thing was beautiful, absolutely massive. I had no idea that there was so much detail. So we spent some time there and then we continued our walk around. We stopped for some food because we hadn't eaten yet during the day, and Angel really wanted to try McDonald's in Paris. And then we went to a Nike store that was a little bit further down the street for Chris, where he picked up some t-shirts and stuff. But later in the day, after a little nap back at the Airbnb, we stopped for the bread and butter. The main reason people go to Paris, the Eiffel Tower. And this thing was absolutely massive, more like way bigger than I ever anticipated. So we spent a good 20-30 minutes there. Then we hopped on some bikes and we went over to the Louvre, where we explored the gardens, saw the statues, and this place was gorgeous. Not only was it like, not only were there tourists here, but there were also people just going about their daily lives, going for jogs and walks and doing whatever. And then we ended up at the Notre Dame Cathedral that had just been recently rebuilt, before we went to a Michelin star dinner later that evening. But after that, I didn't record much of that. But after that day was over, we had to wake up super early and be on a flight from Paris to Rome. So we only got one day to explore. But it was actually really interesting because the Paris airport was so cool. If you've never been there, it's like super retro. They have these red carpets and everything just kind of looks like it's straight out of the 70s. It was like super cool. My friends decided to take a nap, but I was out snapping pics until our flight, and then we landed in Rome. And I also didn't record much of that process because once again, we were in navigation mode. We had to figure out how to figure out the train system to get from the airport to Rome. And what we didn't realize was that taking the train from the airport to Rome was like a 40-minute train ride. So, but we figured it out, navigated, got there. And funny enough, the train actually spit us out at a station that was literally 2 feet from our Airbnb.
The cleanliness in that area in Paris was too much.
Looks like we're on the ghetto side of fucking Rome right now.
The whole entirety of Rome looked ghetto as hell since we entered the city.
Down there, that might be a place to get fucked up at.
Might be liquor store.
It's a hop, skip, and a jump.
So is the metro, which is really nice. That shit is really nice that we have it right there.
Sick. So after another day of traveling, we were basically there late in the afternoon at this point. We immediately stopped for some food, got some authentic Italian pizza, and then right next door to that was actually a little gelato place where we got some gelato for the first time on our trip. And then basically we just went back to the Airbnb and chilled for a little bit before we woke up early the next morning, and it was time to sightsee and explore. And one thing I didn't realize was that after we got off the train in Rome, uh, the terminal station actually spit you out right at the Colosseum. Down to the right of that railing that you just saw was where the entrance for the subway was. So, we that was the first thing we saw. I didn't even get to capture my reaction, but eventually after seeing that, we decided to keep on going. We saw the ruins as we worked our way towards the city center, and on our way there we saw a lot of tourists. We saw a lot of street performers, and this dude was just absolutely shredding this guitar. Unfortunately, I didn't have any cash on me to give this dude any euros, but I definitely would have if I did. We also saw this like super cool statue of Julius Caesar that was right out front of the ruins. And this was honestly probably one of my favorite statues I saw the entire time we were there. Um, but yeah, and then we worked our way to the other side of the ruins. And at this point, we're basically in the city center. And right around this corner was this super interesting clothing store called Doppelganger. And if you like old money fashion and like super nice casual streetwear and super good quality clothing for a very affordable price, I definitely recommend checking them out. And then as we continued our travels, we saw in a window making pasta. Not a whole lot of shops like this that we saw, but it was really cool to see. And then eventually we wound up at the Pantheon, and there were just a ton of people here. So we didn't actually end up going inside, which is kind of unfortunate. But we did spend a little bit of time there. And then we had one more specific stop that we wanted to make for the day. So we went back to the metro, went back to the subway, and then after a train ride and I believe one or two buses, we actually wound up in Vatican City. And after, about a 15-20 minute walk from the bus station, we wound up right at the Vatican, which was really, really interesting. We also didn't do anything that involved going in the interior there. And then Angel had a stop that he wanted to make, which was over at this arena or like soccer field of some sort, which is where they hosted the Olympics recently, which I had no idea about, but Angel was super excited and super psyched to see this place. Then after we got done with that, because we weren't able to go inside, we decided to go just explore a little bit more in the nearby areas where we found this outdoor gym, and Angel got a quick little 10-minute workout in, and we talked to some dudes who were working out there. Um, and yeah, we just hung out here for like 15 minutes. I for sure thought Chris was gonna fall off this thing, but I think it was broken. That or he was a better balance than I anticipated. So yeah. And then basically after this, we just decided to go back to the Coliseum actually and hang out there until dusk, twilight time, and see the Coliseum all lit up. But that basically concludes the first day in Rome, and day two was no different. It was straight back at it, straight back to sightseeing. Our very first stop, aside from this little touristy shop to pick up some trinkets, was the Trevi Fountain, and this place was popping. Like I've seen some videos of the fountain on Instagram, but I did not think there were going to be that many people. And honestly, it made us sick of it pretty quick. So we went back to the city center, back to the Capitol area, and went up to Capitol Hill, where we saw some more statues, some more architecture. And then eventually, after walking around a little bit more, we wound up at Circus Maximus, which is basically just this gigantic track field, if I'm not mistaken. And then once again, we were doing some more shopping, and we wound up at this other clothing store, which is a lot like H&M if you've ever been there, but the Italian version. And for some reason, they had a lot of pop culture from America, which I thought was super interesting. And then our last specific stop of the day was actually the Ferrari store in Rome, where we spent the better half of 2 hours looking at all the items and talking to the dude there. And these cars that you see on the left are crazy expensive. They cost about as much as a real car, but they're collector's items for those who can afford them. But yeah, so then we just walked around a little bit more. We were right next to the Spanish Steps, so we actually headed up there and watched the sunset over the city, which was absolutely beautiful, and apparently a lot of other people had the same idea. But not a bad way to conclude our day before we went on our trek from Rome to Milan, which was roughly a 3-hour train ride, basically through the upper half of Italy. And it was one of the most relaxing travel experiences I think I've ever had, just staring out the window for 3 hours, watching the cities, watching the houses, watching the trees and the mountains just pass us by. So that was really, really, really nice. And then we wound up at the Milan Central Station, which I did not get any pictures of, but I did get some video, and this place just blew me away. I don't think I've ever been in a train station anyway, at least not one like this. So to see the architecture and the detail and just everything was baffling, to say the least. And this day actually ended up being an absolute nightmare of a day because we got lost on the way to our Airbnb before we wound up in this cute little neighborhood. So that was fun. All right, so quick little interjection here. Yes, I am back. So I know that I mentioned that we could not find our Airbnb. This was one of the most tragic days of them all. So what happened was our Airbnb host sent us the address for the Airbnb, but the link actually went to a different address like 40 minutes away. So we're leaving from, where are we? I think we're leaving Milano Central. I think we're leaving the train station, and we're trying to figure out how we have to get to this Airbnb. So we leave the train station, get on a train, and this train that we were on actually takes us past the stop that we needed to get off at. Like, it just blew right by it. And we're just like, oh no. And we went we went a good 3 or 4 stops past where we needed to be before the train finally stopped. So that was like 20 minutes in the wrong direction. And then we had to hop on a train going the opposite way to get back to the train station that we were originally supposed to get off at. So that was hectic in itself. And then we walked for like 30 minutes in the 80-degree heat with our suitcases, dragging them down these cobblestone roads, trying to get to this Airbnb because it was not in a very public location. It was kind of off the beaten path, much like a lot of our Airbnbs were, which looking back now is something I will never do again. It was cool to save some money, but ultimately it took a lot more time than it should have. So anyway, we're in these Airbnbs that are off the beaten path, and I'm texting the Airbnb host, and he's answering saying like, oh, we're here. And we're like, we don't see you. And we're like looking for it. We can't find the address. So I go back and I check the link for the address, and I find a different address than the one that was sent to us. And I put that in, and it's like across town, dude. Like it was like 5 miles. But if you've been to Europe, you know that it takes forever to get around by walking, by car. Like it is not the same as being in America. 5 mile trip here takes you between 5 and 10 minutes. A 5 mile trip there is like a 20-minute ordeal minimum. So we're like on the other side of where we need to be. We got off at the wrong train station. We got off, like, everything was going wrong. We're like already an hour and a half late for check-in time. And we were supposed to be there at like, I don't know, like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock, something wild. And we're just hours late. So we walk like 20 minutes back and we're like, you know what, screw this. I'm just calling an Uber, bro. I'm not dealing with this right now. It's been a hectic day. Like, we've been traveling all day, and it was just one thing we didn't want to deal with. So eventually we just got in the Uber and got dropped off at the right house. And then this dude started just walking us through the entire Airbnb rule list in Italian. So me and my roommates are just shaking our heads and nodding and smiling, hoping that, just pretending to understand what this dude is saying to us. So eventually he did leave us alone, and we just basically chilled out for the rest of the night. But that was a trip in itself, and I wanted to pause the vlog to tell you that. So I'll just let it carry on from here. So yeah, the first day in Milan basically ended up being a travel day, as they do. We actually ended up going out later that night to a couple clubs, which was really fun. Um, but we decided to save the second day in Milan for, the walking around type stuff that we wanted to do, so that we would have more energy. Plus, we were just dealing with the headache of the day before. So, one thing I didn't realize about Milan, though, was that it was more of a modern city. Um, with a more modern architecture, until you got to the outskirts and saw more of that traditional European architecture pop through. And we didn't have too much that we wanted to see specifically, but one thing we did want to do was stop at the Duomo, and this place was super cool. We got a lot of pictures and videos in here. Then we went to the cathedral that was right next to it, got some pictures and videos there, and it was absolutely beautiful. Everything in Europe was absolutely beautiful. I know I keep saying that, but it was. So eventually we made our way over to the flagship Ferrari store in Milan, which was recommended to us by the worker in Rome. And we were really excited to go here because we were told there was going to be an F40 Ferrari in there, which there usually is, except in this particular store, they were showing off more of their boat type stuff at the time. But there was an F1 car hanging from the ceiling, which was really cool to see. They had more parts and collectibles from Ferrari cars, as well as actual worn suits and shoes from their drivers. And they had these games, cards, tic tac toe, chess, checkers, and stuff like that in the Ferrari store as well. And then on our seventh day in Europe, we actually made our way over to Lake Como. And this actually ended up being one of my favorite places that we went throughout our trip. And not just because of these amazing, incredible views, but also because of just the whole feeling that Lake Como gave me, which was this like old money type feeling. Not to mention, it was also super relaxing. It was super quiet. It was super nice to just sit and watch the boats on the water and just enjoy being outside. It was not overly touristy when we were there. So there were some people like congregated in certain areas, but it was really chill for the most part. Except for this one thing that kept happening where there must have been a fire nearby, because this helicopter kept dropping down and collecting water from the lake before flying off again. So that was really cool to see. And then, we had to stop for more gelato after we were walking around for, the entire day. But we did actually decide to go back downtown Milan and explore the city just a little bit more for a second day. One, because Angel didn't get to see some of the stuff that we saw later in the day on the first day because he went to a soccer game. So, plus there was just more to see in general. Not a whole lot could be done in one day. we saw these very famous buildings with this vegetation growing on the outside. And it was right next to this shopping mall, which had a couple different stores, including this Lego store that had built some replicas out of Legos of those buildings. So that was super nice. And then you can see Chris picking up his camera here to take some pictures of the buildings because, I mean, I didn't realize that there was architecture like this in Europe. That might make me sound super uncultured, but you know, I just didn't know. The only places I knew that had more modern architecture like that were more of the Asian countries, to be honest. But it was kind of refreshing. Kind of felt like home to see cities like this. But we did do some more exploring. We went through this park where there was this arc that I wanted to see, and this was a really nice area. It was at an amphitheater where people were just sitting down, talking, relaxing. A couple people were having, I think, lunch or dinner at this point. So, you know, that was basically how we spent the last day in Milan before we made our final stop at this very famous, very interesting, very different Starbucks. It was like, I can't even remember what the technical term for it was, but uh, this particular Starbucks, there's only like five in the world that are like this one, and they actually do like the processing of the coffee beans and everything like in house. Plus, it had a lot of unique menu items, a lot of unique food and drinks that you can only get at this store and stores like this one, as well as some, you know, memorabilia type items. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of my vlog. I think that was probably like what, 20 some minutes, probably one of my longest videos I have on here. Um, I know that it was a lot of random clips and stuff. I know that there wasn't a whole lot of cohesiveness. You know, like I said, I had no idea how to vlog before I went on this trip. So for that, I am sorry. But if you made it to the end, I am so grateful. Thank you for watching the whole thing. I would really like to do more things like this in the future and go more places and do more things. So I hope that this video brought you to someone new, and hopefully you stick around to see the journey and the other crazy things I get up to in the future, which will lead me into this. So if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you want to talk about what you saw in the video, tell me your favorite part. Tell me about your trip to Europe, your trip to Italy, Paris, France, whatever. Go ahead and leave me a comment. I would love to hear about your travel stories. And also, if you have vlogging tips, if you are a vlogger or somebody who just vlogs in their free time and you have tips for me on how I can do better, I would love to hear your thoughts, because obviously, you know, I know a lot of the mistakes that I made now after doing it. But, you know, if you have any other tips or tips and tricks on how to like film and do things, I would love to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and leave me a comment. And then, like always, if you want to see more videos like this, you do want to see what crazy adventures I get up to in the future, because now that we've started, we can't just stop. And I promise you, there will be more adventures in the future. I can guarantee you that. And, you know, if you just want to see more of my face, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And thank you for tuning in. I will see you on the next one.